Today we're going to learn how to use Speedgrade to color correct. And when we open up our assets, you'll see that we've got 4 shots in our Premiere project. So we will open up our Premiere project. And you will see that we've got 4 shots. Mimes chasing a woman down a hallway. We've got mimes chasing people outside. We've got a woman in a parking garage and students in a classroom. And what we're going to do is each shot is cut in half, and we're going to leave the first half uncorrected, and we're going to color correct the second half of each shot so that we have a before and after. So with our timeline selected and highlighted, we will go File, Export, EDL, and we will call it, it's fine to call it that, and we will put that EDL list into our folder. And we can hide that. And the next thing we want to do is we want to go to Applications and scroll down to Speedgrade and open up Speedgrade. And we will tell it to open up a new Speedgrade project, and we will call it Your Name Speedgrade. And we're going to put it in that same folder. Okay. So now up here we're going to just close and open the desktop to refresh it, and we are going to click on our Speedgrade Assets folders, and all of these lovely assets are going to load up. This one happens to be our EDL, so we'll double click on that. We'll say yes, and that has loaded the EDL on, but we haven't loaded the shots yet, and that's what these are. And so we will say load from desktop right here, click on that, and now our shots are magically loaded into our timeline. So now we will go click on color so that we can get started color correcting. We'll get to the second half of our first shot, and we'll click on look, and now we can get started. And if you don't see our monitors, just click on this little arrow and they will show up right here. The one that we most care about is the RGB parade. That's the one that's most useful for me, at least in color correcting. Then we have our timeline right here, and we will already we'll move our handle to the second half of that first shot so that we can color correct that. This is the layer panel, which we will use to do various primary and secondary color corrections. This is our color correcting panel. I like to put it in slider mode. It makes my brain work much better. And then over here we have masks mode that we will play with as well. So the first thing that we want to do is color balance our shot, and we do that by making all of our shapes look the same. So right now red and green look pretty good, so let's mess with blue. And we'll stay in the overall window for right now. And so let's unclick the gamma, and we will just change the blue gamma. We will raise it up a little bit until it looks more like our other shape, and then we will go on and off, and we will see that that took some of the yellow out of the shots. In DSLR cameras, shots tend to get a little yellow. And now let's go into our highlights, and we'll lock things up again. And what we're going to do is we're going to just, with all 3 of these now locked up, we're going to raise up our highlights, make them a little brighter. And we'll click it on and off to make it think. And let's go back to overall and raise up our gain overall. There we go. Don't want to lose all of our mood. Just brighten it up a little bit. And so that is, we've got some nice clean whites in here, and it's a little bit brighter all around. Our flesh tone looks pretty good here. I'm going to desaturate it just a little bit. So I'm going to pull down the saturation button. Alright. And so that's what we will do for our first shot. So we've got our before and after. Okay, let's go down to shot 2, and we'll start with just a real basic setup again. We want to balance our colors. We will make sure that this is all locked up, and we will pull down the gamma a little bit to increase its saturation. Let's pull down the blue gain, see if that changes anything. It's going to make things a little warmer. So that's our before, that's our after. Okay, now let's click on the secondary layer, and what we're going to do is we're going to just change the color blue in our sky. And so we'll do that by clicking the plus here, and I'm going to click and hold the mouse and drag it through all the values of blue that we have in here, and then it'll create this selection here that we can then tweak. And how we'll tweak that is, first we need to see how good our mask works. So we'll go to look at blue and gray, and we'll see that it did a pretty good job. All this, we've got a little nasty corner here and a little bit of business here at the horizon. So let's see if we can just make that go away by just adjusting. Okay, and we'll call that good enough. And so we'll go back to our normal position. And what we'll do now is, so now all we're affecting is this area right here. And so let's start by pulling down the gamma a little bit to make it a little darker. And let's push up its saturation a little bit, make it a little more blue. And then we can see that we've made a significantly different change. And in this mask, where it's really going to show up if we do a sloppy job, it's going to really kind of show up in these trees right here. So when we can roll through here, and I'll press the space bar, and it actually looks pretty good. So now what I want to do is I want to copy with this layer selected. I want to copy it, and I'm going to invert it by clicking there. And then I'm going to pull down, and now we're working outside of it, and now I'm going to pull down the saturation altogether, and I'm going to pull that one down here. And so that's how we do a black and white but leaving one color look. So we'll leave it just like this for the render. Now for this particular shot, what I want to do is something that seems a little more dusky and day for night and feels a little more dangerous. And so let's first start by color correcting. Our shapes look pretty good, but we need to get to touch our blacks a little better. So we'll pull down the gain to bring them down. Let's unlock and bring down the red even more to make it look more like the blue, and the green to make it look more like the blue. And then we'll with this unlocked, we will drive up the blue gain a little bit so that they kind of and we can drag up the green gain just a hair. So that's our before and after, just to start our color correction. And so this time we are going to add one of these looks that are provided for us in Speedgrade. And I'm going to select, and if you don't see it, we can slide this bar up and down. But I'm going to take day for night, and I'm going to click and hold and drag it up to here, because if we just double click it, it's going to wipe out all the previous stuff that we do. Okay, and so with that selected, I'm going to just kind of pull down the opacity of that look so that we're just getting a little bit of it. Make things a little cooler in our world. Alright. Next we'll do another primary layer. Next thing I want to do is make the world a little more blue. And so let's try by making our world less green and less red. Bring down our green, bring down our reds. And by doing that, we've made it a little more blue. Let's go into our gamma and pull up our blue a little bit. Alright, so that has made things much colder looking. Next thing that we'll do is we will add a mask. So we'll click on masks, we'll click on the feathered mask, and we can, by clicking and dragging on these arrows here, we can kind of change the shape in general, and we can move the whole thing. We can also get in here and we can change each node the way that we want it. And so really the color correction will be happening either inside or outside of this mask, and this will determine how much feathered it is, and that's really important because we want there to be a good vignette, but we don't want to see it either. Alright, and so we will make sure, so our mask is created, that the triangle is, and we will click on this because we want our color correction to affect the world outside the mask. So then we will go to overall, we will make sure that all of our bars are picked, and we're just going to make our outside world darker. Okay, I want to adjust the mask again, so we will click on this tool and you see how it changes it, but I don't want that, so I'll hit Command Z and it'll return it to what we want, and I'm going to bring it in a little closer. Alright, and let's see what that looks like before and after. Alright, that's pretty good. So let's move on to our last shot. Once again, shot with the DSLR, so it's pretty yellow. So we are going to want to bring some more blue in, and if we look at these shapes, we see the red and green are looking alike. So we'll push up the blue gamma. Pull down the green a little bit. Pull down the red a little bit. That looks better. It seems a little blue to me overall. So let's get into our midtones and make it less blue. Drag it left a little bit. the blacks look very blue to me in the shirts and in the grays here. So let's go into our shadows and let's bring down the blues in there. Oops, undo, Command Z. We just want to grab the blue here. Let's try this. Let's make another primary, and then let's go ahead and take some of the blues out of these blacks. And so we will go into the shadows and we'll take some of the blue out there, and we'll do the same thing in the game by pulling it back. Alright, so now we got some much cleaner blacks. That gray looks more like gray. And we can stack these up as much as we want. Let's go ahead and add a nice mask on this. That catches all of our guys. We will put the mask outside, and we will pull down the gamma overall. And the whole idea of a vignette is to draw our eyes to the center of the frame where we want to be looking and not the edges. But we also want to be able to see the mask but not have it call attention to itself. And so Command Z now to get back to my shape. So let's go ahead and feather it even more, increase our feather so it makes it a little less obvious. Alright. Okay, that looks good. Now one last thing I want to show you guys is we can do a power window as well if we wanted to select a certain area. Like if we notice this blind is much brighter than these two blinds. So let's go ahead and bring that down. So we're going to create a new mask by creating pluses, and we will go from left to right here. Click and then we'll turn off the plus tool so that we can just edit what we got. And so now we've got a nice window here. We will be working inside, and we will start by, well, let's grab it overall and pull it down, see what happens. Oops, undo. Make sure we get all three bars here. See if that does anything. Helps a little bit. Let's get into the highlights, and let's pull down the gain a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good in terms of brightness compared to there, but we've got some weird green business in here, so let's go ahead and pull out some of the saturation in there. See what that looks like. So now it looks more like these windows and isn't necessarily, you know, our eyes like to go to bright places. So right now where we're going to his hat, which brings us into our world. So now it is, so those are the color corrections that we're going to do. If you wanted to save this color correction for like another shot, all you have to do is hit save look, and it will show up in your register, and you can change it to any name you want. New name. Okay. When it's time to render, the first thing we want to do is save your project so that if we have to come back to it, it's available to you. That's cool. Then we want to double check to make sure our render bar is set so that it starts at 0 and goes right to the end of our project. Otherwise it will render less than our project will permit. Then we will click on the render bar and we will navigate from the desktop to your Speedgrades folder. You will name your file. You will make sure that it says Apple ProRes 444 2997, and we want the same size as proxy. So that means if we have been working in 1080p the whole time and we want it to come out as 1080p, we'll get that result. And then we will click render and then watch the project before you post it, and you're done.